Hello world, welcome to the 166th climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm trying out a microphone on the square here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I call it Climate Change Protest Corner. It's right here on the corner of York Street and the square in Gettysburg. And I encourage anyone to come out at any time and do their protest here. So this is, this is February 11th, 2022. This is number 166. Next week will be February 18th, 2022, and that'll be number 167, as hard as that is to believe. Okay, so right now the USA and Russia are at odds with each other over the Ukraine and other places. And, right now they're talking about war. People are talking about war. The media is talking about war and all. And meanwhile, we got a climate change emergency going on. We got these two numbnuts in charge that, and the organizations behind them, the military organizations that depend on getting money from Congresses or the proletariat or whatever they do in Russia. And they have to justify their reason for being. And so let's have a little war and get things going. But what could go wrong with two nuclear powers standing off against each other? So, we're in the middle of this climate change issue, and it's never going to go away. It's going to get worse and worse and worse, and nobody's addressing it. Russia is not aggressive about climate change at all. In fact, they probably want it to happen because they believe that Siberia will be able to grow more food, which it could normally, but and also oil and gas production there. Siberia, though, is going to go through a world of problems, such as permafrost thaw. And after that, also the fires break out, which they've had in the past year, and the degradation of the land. So you end up with all sorts of problems that it's not going to be hunky-dory out there in Siberia, and it's going to become a real issue for them. They've had heat waves in Siberia up to 100 degrees, and you have methane coming out of the ground. So it's a climate change disaster going on. So glacier melt is a real possibility, and with the Thwaites Glacier and all. And what will happen with that in Siberia and also around Russia, thinking they can get out of climate change A-OK, is that you're going to have flooding of airports, you're going to have flooding of towns, you're going to have flooding of ports in Russia. So in the long run, the Russians end up losing in the climate change battle, and they think they're trying to gain with Siberia, and they're not going to. If they build pipelines and all, that infrastructure will absolutely fall apart once you sink it into the permafrost. If you build runways, it'll sink into the permafrost or get all degraded. So nothing will work right. All the housing that they have there will also fall to pieces. So we're in for a world of hurt, and there's no model that can predict how bad it's going to get. But you can predict how good it's going to be, and this is about it, and it's only going to get worse and worse. So in Canada right now, and this is going to be a sore subject for a lot of people, and I understand because you're Canadians or you're at the border, but you have a trucker strike, and I'm not saying I'm in favor of them or not, but it shows what being committed to whatever you want to accomplish can do. They're forcing the government to talk about it, which our climate change protests are not doing that because people won't come out, people won't do anything, people won't broadcast, people won't talk about it. So you get all these trucks backing up on the highway and everything deliberately, and it's causing a real issue for the economy. So this is an issue where climate change people and protesters need to actually take account for it. It shows what not only individuals can do, but it also shows what entire groups can do if they stay committed with constant pressure. So that's all I got to say about that. So in the United States and also around the world, you have leftist versus right people. You have liberals, so-called liberals, they think they are, against so-called conservatives, they think they are. And in this country also have Democrats and versus Republicans. All this needs to stop. There are commonalities involved. There are ways we can talk to each other and get past the dogmatic narrative of my candidate, my party over your party. Because all this needs to stop because we're going to die from climate change if we don't get our stuff together. And we probably will die from climate change because we're not getting our stuff together. This is a 100% guaranteed failure of the ecological system and also the just the whole system in general. The biosphere is going to collapse. This is death and this is extinction. This is forever. And we cannot survive past 3.5 degrees Celsius. The UN IPCC says that, what will happen is 3.5 degrees Celsius. You have some pockets surviving, but basically society will have melted down by then. Even at 1.5 degrees, all is basically lost. We only have a very small, tiny, tiny, tiny window if it is not already closed. In my mind, we're already 5 minutes past doomsday. But, you got to do something with the time you're given. So basically, 1.5 at 1.5 degrees that they're trying to stay within the guardrail, which is impossible. It's basically lost also. But you need to do something. You need to get out and protest. So what's going to happen at 1.5, it is happening now, is you have massive feedback loops. There are over 60-some feedback loops going on, if not in the hundreds around the world concerning climate change, such as the melting of the Arctic, which causes more heat, which causes loss of sea ice, which causes permafrost venting off methane. You get the picture, and it makes it hotter and hotter and hotter. So at 1.5 degrees, and you're seeing this now, is that you're going to have even more food shortage issues, shelter issues. The grids will collapse, the electrical grids. Government breakdowns at that point. They're going to try and install martial law, because then you have to have a fascist type government to control the people, because you got social unrest because they get no support, no food, no shelter, no nothing. And we saw this during the pandemic. It took a long time for governments to catch up. And even then, they really didn't support the people all that well, especially in this country. Governments need to stop fossil fuel subsidies. This is the basic thing. If they can't do this, they're not serious about climate change. And we in the United States and we around the world are not serious about climate change, because they refuse to stop subsidizing oil and gas industry and coal industry. Let's see, President Biden, needs to make the case daily on television and radio about climate change, and really take it seriously. Quit worrying about the election and start worrying about our survival as a country. You're not going to have a party left if you have an extincted population. You can have a party of one, but that's about it. Media needs to report the actual truth of what's happening right now with climate change and associate these events with climate change. They need to give it to us straight, blunt talk, the sheer naked truth. We cannot survive a 5-degree rise, as many are predicting, and I think it's going to go much higher than that, or 3.5 degree rise, or a 3-degree rise, or a 1.5 degree rise. Things are going to spin out of control as they are now. They're having fires right now out in Los Angeles area, and it's winter time. So the last time it was this hot, it was 3 million years ago, or this bad with CO2 levels. Hold on. CO2 levels were, the last time they were above 400 was in the Pliocene area, and that was only when they were between 350 and 400. Right now we're at 420 parts per million carbon dioxide. So back then in the Pliocene era, temperatures were 3 degrees higher. Are you getting a theme here? This is what we're locking in, is 3 degrees higher. Oceans were 82 feet higher. So this is what we're locked in for. Glaciers are going to start collapsing, as if Thwaites Glacier in Antarctica, and I'll talk about that in a second. So with these higher temperatures and higher waters, you got total devastation coming. Bangladesh would be in big trouble going underwater. The world island nations, India, China, would all be suffering severely, because China has many places at sea level, and the oceans will just rush right in. Europe, Africa, of course, South America, everything gets changed, as well as the wind patterns and the weather going on. The USA would truly be decimated by a rise of 82 feet. All the coastline would be decimated. All the ports would be wasted. The big major metropolitan areas would be in trouble. The world economies would absolutely be destroyed. You can't have a civilization if water is 82 feet higher and they didn't make any preparations for this kind of a sea level rise. So down in Antarctica, you have the Thwaites Glacier, and it's due to collapse in the next 1 to 5 years. That represents 4 feet of sea level rise. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's going to destroy a lot of cities around the world. And then if you get a hurricane on top of that pulling in the water, you're going to have a real devastating situation. So Thwaites Glacier is just one of many glaciers that are in potential collapse state. Right now in the oceans also you have 400 dead zones. People don't realize that. There's areas, pockets of the ocean now that have absolutely no oxygen in them, and they're totally dead. Fish go in there and they go to die. If they have to get out of there, just like if your area was on fire, you'd have to get out of that. Well, the fish can't breathe when there's no oxygen. So the oceans are absorbing equal to 7 atomic bombs per second in heat. and what's going to happen with these glacier rise, as I was going back to, is you're going to major cities in the United States going to be decimated. You have airports in the United States going to be overrun. If you look at your airports, a lot of them are at sea level. You got 100 nuclear facilities around the world that also are on the coastlines. Major military bases, especially navies around the world, are going to be in trouble. And then you run the risk of supercharged hurricanes, Category 6 to the heating oceans, and that's not out of the realm of possibilities. Permafrost loss would be even faster because the shorelines would get inundated with sea level rise, and that would cause, just like a thermokarst lake, it would cause melting down below in the permafrost regions. You'd end up with massive food shortages. Protests would occur, and protests need to get out on the street and be peaceful. Right now, this is, you can't have violent protests. The ones in Canada right now are peaceful, the truckers and all. And, if you end up with violent protests, then the military steps in even more so, as well as do the police. So if you end up, the longer we wait with climate change and to act on it, the more chance of violent protests are going to happen. People don't take kindly to running out of food or watching your kids die. So the best thing you can do is get educated about climate change. Talk with friends and family, protest constantly, do something like this every week or daily or whatever. Make your voice known on the internet that you're not happy with the direction we're going, and we're definitely on the road to hell if we're already have locked in 3 degrees Celsius rise, as well as oceans being 80 feet higher. Broadcasting like this is really good to get into people. The main thing is to protest constantly. And you can also, if you don't get out here, the problem just gets worse and worse. And if the politicians keep on their way, the situation is just going to get worse and worse. So hopefully I'll see a protest corner sometime, or make your own protest corner here in Gettysburg or wherever else around the whole world, and find an area where you can make most impact. I'm going to stand here for a few minutes with my placard and, say on how unhappy I am about things, and as a warning that things could get much, much worse and will get much, much worse. So if you get a chance, check out Environmental Coffee House on Facebook, as well as Paul Beckwith on YouTube, Environmental Coffee House on YouTube as well, and Peter Carter. He's really a good scientist and speaker about climate change, as well as going down this webpage. I've got tons of articles about what's happening in the world, and you might get well informed by going down this webpage. So I'll catch you next week for number 167. That'll be on February 18th and 2022. See you then. Bye.